The sound of city traffic hums faintly through the glass walls. A long mahogany table gleams under fluorescent light. The room is filled with polished shoes, tailored suits, and the kind of silence that only money can buy. And then, one quiet voice breaks it. Maybe, "She's not ignoring you," the girl says softly. Heads turn. The room of executives freezes. It's the last place anyone expected a 10-year-old to speak in a Billionaire's boardroom on the 45th floor, where decisions change lives and zeros multiply like dust. But there she stands, Maya, small frame, dark curls pulled into a loose ponytail, her school backpack hanging off one shoulder, a scuff mark on one shoe. Her voice trembles, but her eyes are steady. Moments ago, no one even noticed her. Now every gaze is on her. At the head of the table sits Jonathan Creed, a billionaire tech magnate in his late 30s. Crisp gray suit, perfectly styled hair, the kind of man who speaks in numbers and contracts. He leans forward, palms flat on the table. "Excuse me?" he says, disbelief etched into every syllable. Maya hesitates. "I said, maybe she's not ignoring you." Across from him, Eleanor Creed, his mother, elegant in an ivory blazer and pearl earrings, watches the girl with curious, gentle eyes. Eleanor doesn't respond. Her hands rest folded in her lap, still and dignified. Jonathan sighs. "Young lady, this is a private meeting. I don't know how you got past security." "But she's deaf," Maya blurts out. The room gasps. Jonathan's expression falters for a heartbeat, then hardens. "Excuse me?" Maya swallows. "Your mother, she can't hear you." "She's deaf. She was trying to tell you something. But you kept talking too fast." Every face in the room tilts toward the old woman. Eleanor smiles faintly, the kind of smile that says someone finally noticed. Jonathan straightens, caught between embarrassment and disbelief. "My mother isn't, she just—" He stops, realizing how much he doesn't actually know. Eleanor raises her hand slowly, her fingers forming delicate movements, not random, but deliberate, precise. Maya's eyes light up. She steps closer. She's signing. "I think she's using ASL." The executives exchange bewildered glances. One whispers, "ASL? American Sign Language?" Maya explains quickly. "She's saying she's proud of you, but she's sad you never learned to listen without words." Jonathan's jaw tightens. The room grows heavier. Maya's small fingers begin to mirror Eleanor's gestures. The woman's face brightens, the first real joy in the room. "You can sign?" Jonathan asks, stunned. "A little," Maya says shyly. "My grandma couldn't hear either. She taught me before she—" Her voice trails off. "Before she passed." The silence that follows feels like an apology. No one knows how to make. Jonathan lowers himself back into his chair, eyes on his mother. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" Eleanor's hands move again, this time slower. Maya interprets softly. "She tried. You were always busy. She wrote letters. You never read them." The words hit harder than any boardroom verdict. Jonathan exhales shakily, and for the first time, the confidence drains from his face. Across the room, the executives shift awkwardly. Men who measure value in profits, now confronted with something priceless. Connection. Maya had never been here before. Just that morning, she was sweeping the cafe downstairs, collecting tips that barely filled a paper cup. She'd seen the woman, Eleanor, sitting alone near the window, tapping her fingers gently on the table in rhythm, humming silently to a melody only she could feel. When the older woman's notebook fell, pages fluttering across the floor, Maya helped gather them. On one page, she noticed the careful handwriting. "Today, I'll try to tell him again." That's how she ended up following Eleanor upstairs, unnoticed, holding the notebook in her small hands, until the meeting erupted. Now she stood in the middle of a world she didn't belong to, translating the language of silence. Jonathan's assistant clears his throat. "Sir, shall we—" Jonathan cuts him off. "No, we're not going anywhere." He turns back to Maya. "What's she saying now?" Maya watches Eleanor's hands. "She says she built everything for you to have a voice. But somewhere, you forgot that other people's voices matter too." Jonathan's lips part. His mother's expression is warm but firm, a lifetime of patience behind her gaze. He looks down. Mom, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. Eleanor signs again, her fingers trembling. Maya translates quietly. She knows, but she wants to see if you'll learn now. Tears threaten behind Jonathan's composure. The boardroom skyline glimmers behind them like glass stars. For years, he'd been the voice of the company, the strategist, the visionary, the man whose words closed deals before lunch. Yet sitting across from his mother now, he feels utterly voiceless. And then, something extraordinary happens. Eleanor reaches out her hand, and Maya takes it first, guiding it gently toward Jonathan. The young girl bridges their worlds, her small fingers connecting 2 generations through compassion. Jonathan clasps his mother's hand, uncertain, then imitates Maya's gestures slowly, clumsily. I'm sorry. Eleanor smiles and squeezes his hand. The executives exchange glances, some with tears, others with shame. One whispers, This is the most meaningful meeting we've ever had. When the meeting ends, no one moves. Jonathan sits there, quiet for the first time in years. His assistant tries to hand him a document, but he waves it off. His mother's hand rests on his, steady and forgiving. He turns to Maya. You changed something today. She looks startled. I didn't mean to. You did. He interrupts softly. You changed everything. Maya fidgets, unsure what to say. She just needed someone to listen. Jonathan nods. So did I. He looks around the table. This company talks about innovation, about connection, about changing the world. But today, a 10-year-old reminded me what that really means. Maya blushes, clutching her backpack. Eleanor signs one more phrase. Maya smiles and translates. She says, You should always remember the language of the heart never needs sound. Jonathan closes his eyes for a moment, as if committing the words to memory. That night, as the city glows below the high towers, Maya walks home through the quiet streets, clutching a small white envelope Jonathan pressed into her hand. Inside, there's no money, only a handwritten note. You reminded me to listen. Thank you. J.C. She tucks it close to her chest. For the first time in years, she feels seen, not as a poor girl cleaning floors, but as someone whose kindness mattered. And while this was only the beginning of their story, that single moment, a child translating silence into understanding, would ripple far beyond that boardroom. Because sometimes, the smallest voice carries the loudest truth. The morning after the meeting, Jonathan Creed stood by the window of his penthouse, staring out at the city. The same skyline that once made him feel powerful now looked strangely cold. His phone buzzed with messages, investors, journalists, assistants, endless noise. He silenced them all. Downstairs, his mother sat at the kitchen table, tracing her fingers along the rim of a coffee cup. The light hit her silver hair like a halo. She looked peaceful, but her eyes carried a lifetime of quiet longing. Jonathan approached carefully. Good morning, Mom. She looked up, smiling, and signed, Good morning, my son. He smiled back, then hesitated. I practiced last night. Just a few words. He moved his hands clumsily, forming, Thank you. Eleanor's eyes glistened. She reached out and touched his cheek. For the first time in years, they understood each other. Not perfectly, but enough. Later that day, Jonathan walked through the sleek glass lobby of Creed Dynamics. Every employee watched him differently now. News of the boardroom incident, as they called it, had spread across the company like wildfire. Sir, said his assistant, walking briskly beside him. About yesterday, there's talk online. Someone recorded a snippet on their phone. It's going viral. People are calling it the sign of silence. Jonathan stopped. They recorded that? Yes, sir. But it's positive. Millions of views overnight. People are talking about accessibility, kindness, empathy. It's actually good press. He didn't know how to feel. The world that once praised his genius was now praising something entirely different. Humility. Meanwhile, in a narrow street across town, Maya sat on the front steps of her small apartment building, holding the note Jonathan had given her. Her mother, Tasha, came out carrying a laundry basket. "Maya, baby, you okay?" Maya nodded. "I met a nice lady yesterday. She couldn't hear, but she was really smart. I helped her talk to her son." Tasha smiled faintly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." She paused, eyeing her daughter's face. "You look different, happier." Maya shrugged. I think I did something good." Her mother knelt down. "You always do good, baby, even when people don't see it." Maya hugged her tight. That afternoon, a black car pulled up outside their building. A driver stepped out and handed Maya an envelope embossed with the Creed Dynamics logo. Inside was a small note and a folded piece of paper. "Maya, would you join me and my mother for lunch today? We have something important to discuss." Jonathan Creed. Tasha's eyes widened. "Girl, what did you do?" Maya laughed nervously. I just listened." The restaurant was the kind you only saw in magazines. White tablecloths, glass chandeliers, waiters in black suits. Maya felt completely out of place. Jonathan stood as she entered. "Maya! You made it!" Eleanor smiled warmly and waved. Maya's eyes darted around the room. "It's so fancy," she whispered. Jonathan chuckled. "Well, today you're our guest of honor." They sat down, and the waiter poured sparkling water into crystal glasses. Maya held hers carefully, afraid to break it. Jonathan leaned forward. "I wanted to thank you again. You didn't just help my mother. You helped me see her." Maya smiled shyly. "You were busy? Grown-ups are always busy." Eleanor signed something, and Maya interpreted. "She says grown-ups forget that silence can be beautiful too." Jonathan nodded slowly. "She's right." They ate quietly for a while. Then Jonathan spoke again. "Maya, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "I don't know. Maybe a teacher or a nurse or someone who helps people talk to each other." Eleanor signed quickly, and Maya laughed as she translated. "She says that's exactly what the world needs, more people who listen." A few days later, Jonathan called an emergency meeting at Creed Dynamics, but this time, it wasn't about numbers or deals. When everyone gathered, he stood at the front of the room beside his mother and Maya. "Yesterday, I was reminded that communication isn't about talking. It's about understanding," he began. "We build technology to connect people, but somewhere along the way, we forgot the people part." He turned to Maya. "This young girl reminded me that even silence has a language, and it's time we learned it." He looked around at his stunned employees. "Starting today, Creed Dynamics will launch an initiative to make all our products fully accessible for the deaf and hard-of-hearing community. Every employee, including me, will learn the basics of sign language." The room erupted in murmurs. His assistant whispered, "That's incredible." Eleanor smiled proudly, her fingers moving in soft applause. Maya joined her, clapping quietly. Jonathan continued, "We'll call it Project Listen, because the world doesn't need more voices. It needs more understanding." Weeks passed, and the office transformed. Posters of hands forming ASL signs lined the hallways. Employees practiced during coffee breaks. The sound of laughter replaced the old hum of indifference. Maya visited often, helping Eleanor teach simple signs to the staff. Everyone adored her. The little girl who'd reminded a billionaire what humanity looked like. One afternoon, Jonathan walked into the training room and found Maya surrounded by employees, teaching them the sign for hope. He smiled. "You're quite the teacher," she grinned. "They're fast learners." He crouched beside her. "You know, I used to think leadership was about being heard, but you showed me it's about listening." Maya looked thoughtful. "My grandma used to say, 'The heart has ears that never sleep.'" Jonathan's gaze softened. "Your grandma was a wise woman." That evening, after everyone left, Jonathan sat with his mother in the quiet office. The sunset painted the sky in orange and gold. He signed slowly, "I'm proud of you." Eleanor smiled and signed back, "I'm proud of you too." He hesitated, then signed again, "Thank you for waiting for me to listen." Tears filled Eleanor's eyes. She reached out, touching his hand gently. And though no words were spoken, everything was said. A few weeks later, Maya and her mother were invited to the grand launch of Project Listen. Cameras flashed as Jonathan took the stage, his mother by his side. But before he began, he gestured toward the audience. "Before I speak, I want to invite someone very special up here." The crowd turned as Maya stepped onto the stage, shy but brave. Jonathan placed a small microphone in front of her. "This is the girl who reminded us that silence is not weakness. It's wisdom." The audience applauded. Maya looked at Eleanor, who signed something encouraging. Maya smiled and spoke softly. "Sometimes people don't hear you because they don't want to. But sometimes they just need someone to help them understand. If you ever meet someone who's quiet, don't walk away. Maybe they're waiting for someone like you to listen." The room fell completely silent. Eleanor's eyes glowed with pride. Jonathan felt something stir deep in his chest. Gratitude, pure and humbling. He leaned toward the microphone. "Maya taught me that connection doesn't start with speaking. It starts with caring. Let's make the world one where everyone's voice, spoken or signed, is heard." Thunderous applause followed. Eleanor signed one word: "Together." Jonathan smiled and repeated it aloud. "Together." That night, Maya stood on her tiny apartment balcony, watching the city lights flicker. Tasha joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "You changed a whole company, baby." Maya smiled. "I just helped them talk." Her mother laughed softly. "Maybe that's the greatest change of all." They stood there quietly, the night air cool and gentle. Far across the city, Jonathan looked out his window, the same skyline now glowing warmer, softer. On his desk sat a framed photo, Maya, Eleanor, and himself, signing the word hope. He whispered, "Thank you, Maya." For the first time in his life, he understood what wealth really meant. Not numbers, but hearts touched. That day had changed them all. But the story wasn't over yet. Because kindness, once shared, always finds its way back. Rain tapped softly against the tall windows of the Creed Foundation, the place where it had all begun. But this time, the air felt different. The walls that once echoed with cold business talk now carried laughter and the gentle rhythm of signing hands. At the center stood Maya, her small fingers moving gracefully as she taught a group of children the basics of ASL. She'd grown into confidence, her smile bright, her spirit unshaken. Nearby, Eleanor Creed watched proudly, her once silent world now alive with connection. Jonathan entered quietly, holding 2 cups of cocoa. "She's remarkable," he said. Eleanor smiled and signed, "Because she listens with her heart." A few weeks later, at the launch of Project Listen, Jonathan announced the Maya Scholarship Fund. For children like her, bright, kind, and overlooked. At the ceremony, Maya sat beside her mother, eyes wide as Jonathan began. Every great idea starts with a small voice, but sometimes we're too busy to hear it. I was, until a little girl reminded me that silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of meaning. He signed the last words. "Thank you, Maya." The crowd stood, applauding. Tears glimmered in Maya's eyes as she signed back, "You're welcome." Years passed. Project Listen became a movement. Schools began teaching sign language. Companies hired interpreters. The world slowly learned to listen. Now, a young woman, Maya stood on stage beneath a banner. Creed Foundation, 10 years of Project Listen. Her voice trembled softly. 10 years ago, I was just a girl cleaning tables. I didn't have money or power, but I had one thing that changed everything: compassion. She lifted her hands, signing the words slowly. When I met Mrs. Creed, I thought I was helping her. But she was teaching me that listening is love in action. You don't need to be rich to make someone feel heard. You just have to care enough to understand. The audience fell silent. Jonathan and Eleanor watched proudly as Maya finished. In a world full of noise, maybe what we need most is to listen. The crowd rose in applause, many signing the word together. Noise and silence blended, perfectly in harmony. Later that night, Maya walked through the quiet city, the rain falling softly. She passed a cafe where a man struggled to understand a deaf woman. Maya smiled and stepped forward. "She's asking for tea, not coffee." They both looked up in surprise, and the woman signed, "Thank you." Maya signed back, "You're welcome." As she stepped back into the rain, she looked toward the skyline, the same one she'd once stared at in fear. Now, she only felt peace, because she finally understood. Listening changes everything. So, the next time you see someone who can't find the words, stop, look, and listen. You might just hear something that changes your life. If this story touched your heart, hit like, share it with someone who needs hope, and tell us in the comments which moment spoke to you most and where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to Black Saga, where every story reminds us that kindness isn't small, and every silent heart has a voice waiting to be heard.